since I've been here, it is what it is. Okay, so can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Yes. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the whole Diddy live, Diddy tribe, Diddy whatever you want. Okay, so let's get into this. All right. Let's get into this. So Diddy's in, he's in a tan gel suit. You know he mad. I wonder if he's still leaving his gray hairs out open, trying to act like. I wonder if that's what he's doing. He's leaving his gray hair still in, still trying to play that old man river. Let's see. Ba 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 ba. Okay, so here we go. All rise, right? The clerk, who I believe is Anthony, is like, no, the clerk says appearances. Alexander Shapiro stands up. Your Honor, with us is Mark Garagos. Sorry, Tinny Garagos. Diddy's team keeps trying to name drop like Judge Aaron is an MF and groupie. Okay, Shapiro, we see what you're doing. Again, Shapiro is in charge of his appeal. So that is why she is taking the spearhead for this, all right? Judge Aaron says, you don't have to take the full 15 minutes if you've said all you need. Please proceed. Already, Judge Aaron is letting us know he's not with the BS. He literally told Diddy side before they even started with the ish and giggles, you don't have to tell us anything. Don't take the full 15 minutes. If you've written everything you need to say, can we just move on? It sounds like he's already made up his mind. It sounds like he is already made up his mind. But let's continue, shall we? Um, he then goes on to say, so the U.S. attorney stands up, right? The U.S. attorney stands up and says, Your Honor, we point you to U.S. v. Kelly, Second Circuit, 2025. If you guys don't know where the ways, well, let me tell you what the Kelly, and then I'll tell you why it's important. Which stands that Combs Rule 29 arguments had to have been raised pre-trial or else they're waived. Rule 29, if you guys don't know, is for the acquittal new trial stuff. They're trying to say that, baby, you are out of statute of limitations. The same thing that Diddy keeps using when they're like, oh, a victory for Diddy, because the ish he did was maybe 7 years ago, 10 years ago. They don't have relevant proof. The government hit it right back and said, this Rule 29 motion, it's not. Now, here's the thing. Another thing why this is so strong is you realize that if a court case happens in California, okay, and it's federal court, it is persuasive. A federal judge can look to that and be like, oh, okay, so maybe I can use that. Because here's the thing, judges sometimes set precedents when there's a brand new ruling, but sometimes they literally, when they set precedents, but sometimes judges will veer off. Now, why is that important? Because when you're trying to convince a judge to do what you want, it's basically like standing in front of your parents and being like, but you let Ben and them go, you let Hakeem and them go, but we was just talking to Lacey and you let her go. Because it's like, if you can show that other judges have agreed with what I'm trying to tell you, judges really feel more comfortable ruling in that thing because judges never want to go out on a rim. However, if you look at what they said, the U.S. attorney says, we point to the U.S. v. Kelly, Second Circuit, 2025. The most, so outside of New York, that's persuasive. Precedence is where someone in your own home did it. They're saying this is Second Circuit, which is Southern District of New York. They are saying it is 2025. And they are saying the facts are very, very nearly what Diddy's is. And it shows that this Rule 29 motion just isn't going to go. So already, despite what the morally decrepit, like morally bankrupt Diddy supporters that are begging this man to pay their rent. You know, people say women are groupies. You ain't seen a groupie. You ain't seen a groupie since you've seen a bum around another man with money. Baby, that is all hoes on the floor. That is open wide and say ha. And there's a lot of podcasters, a lot of men groupies. Well, people old enough to be men, right? literally on their knees begging, please, 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 Diddy, I need, can I get? I think that's where their anger for women come from because they're mad that most women have assets to get them in rooms that they even can't even get on the rooms on their knees. But that's just my opinion about a lot of these male YouTubers and podcasters supporting Diddy. That's my opinion. And the women that are supporting these men that are supporting Diddy, well, baby, they're like the last slice of pizza. There is nothing more bitter in this world than a pick me who's aged out of the pick me trifecta. You must be beautiful, you must be young, and you must be dumb. They need all three. And when you see a woman age out of that, it's sad. Or they don't even fit the criteria. It's sad. It's sad. The level of hate they have, they inflict on all women. Anyway, Jesus wept, but what am I to do, right? So anyway, um, so the USA attorney, they were directly answering the judge's first question. Any case that is deemed a defendant Rule 29 argument is waived or forfeited, right? So Judge Aaron responds. He says, separate out the jury instructions. You're saying that this defendant's constitutional arguments should have been made at the Rule 12 stage? The USA Johnson, this is Emily Johnson, right? She was part of the original Dream Team. Shout out to Maureen Comey. I hope she gets her justice. Emily Johnson, the U.S. attorney, says, Your Honor, that's correct. Judge Aaron, the defense is making an as applied argument that they can do in on Rule 29, right? The U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson hits back, Your Honor, I'm gonna push back on their reading of the cases. In Dennis, the defendant was arguing that he couldn't be tried without infringing on the First Amendment. The parties agreed. It was only about sufficiency. Judge Aaron jumps in. Okay, counselor, but the court went right past waiver. Okay, this is getting interesting. So they're basically arguing whether Diddy even got his request for Rule 29, whether he even got it in during the deadline. The government is saying you should have brought that up even before trial started, right? You should have brought this up either before trial started or at an earlier stage, which is a Rule 12. There's Rule 12B, which is the most famous one. That is a motion to dismiss. They're saying that you should have brought this up at the motion to dismiss stages. Motion to dismiss can be before trial, they can be during trial, they can be before the jury is sent out, and they can be when the jury comes back. But it must be renewed each time. And they're saying, much like that, this is what should actually be in there. Mm, this is getting good. This is getting good. Okay. So the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, in the meantime, why this is going on, this is being live tweeted. Don't worry, you guys. I will definitely be at the sentencing, but life happens. I have a family and a man that needs me. So, but I will 100% be at the sentencing. But I will say to this, um, the sentence everybody's saying that Diddy is going to walk free today. You are on crack and you don't understand the American sentence. See, here's the thing. Even if Diddy is acquitted, and I talked about this in a video, but I'll talk about this here while we're waiting for more information to come out of the courtroom. Even if Diddy is acquitted, the prosecution still has a chance to appeal, and they will appeal quickly because they will think that the judge got it wrong. Now, Judge Aaron has not shown any instances that he actually thinks, oh, you guys hit the like button, hit the share. I'm trying to grow. I have a lot of I have oh, thank you. You guys, everybody give a shout out to House of Glam. It was her birthday. Thank you, Jamie. I finally took your advice on lighting. Okay, but here's the thing. Everybody say happy birthday to House of Glam. She is a Libra, you can tell. She is drop dead gorgeous and she is a Libra, but y'all, Libra season is upon us. And they ain't gonna let us forget that they are the Avengers of Truth, and also the Venus blessed them with the beauty and booty. But anyway, listen. Um, so anyway, getting back to what I was saying about this, even if he does get an acquittal, and I don't think so, because Judge Aaron said he couldn't be in his tan jumpsuit. The U.S. Attorney's Office is coming out swinging. All this stuff is going on, okay? It doesn't look like that's going to be, um, uh, uh that it doesn't look like it's going to be granted, but even if it is, the prosecution has a chance to appeal. It's a small window, but the prosecution is gonna take it. They're going to appeal. Diddy will not walk free today no matter what happens. As far as him getting a new trial, I have said I have some concerns that there might be something, that literally goes into, uh, with the definition of prostitution. If Shapiro and Driscoll, who's really good at these like little nuances, if they can make a good argument to get the new trial. However, he's going to take the arguments. All every legal profession I talk to, again, they're not God, but they say that he's going to think on it, review everything, and he's going to make his ruling sometime next week. They believe that Diddy will be sentenced before his acquittal comes out. Okay. So anyway, so getting back into it, the U.S. attorney says that she wanted to push back on um a lot of things. Okay. Um, the judge now turns his attention to Diddy's case. If you guys forgot what just happened, the U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson said, I want to push back on the reading of the cases. In Dennis, the defendant was arguing that he couldn't be tried without infringing the First Amendment. The parties agreed. That was only about sufficiency. Again, sufficiency is, do you even have the level required to actually be in this court? The judge interrupts, but the court went right past the waiver. The judge then turns his attention to Diddy's attorney, Ms. Shapiro, who will also be handling his appeal. Again, Shapiro and Driscoll, they are aces when it comes to technical arguments. This isn't about innocence. This is about technicality, okay? Just trying to see if the other side got caught slipping. The judge turns to Ms. Shapiro. Ms. Shapiro, can you address these arguments? Ms. Shapiro, that's Combs' lawyer, stands up. Your Honor, the Dennis case is on point. The court made clear that statutory construction arguments can be raised under Rule 29. Also, the Lopez case, I actually argued it. Oh, well, oh. Let's see. We're waiting for the U.S. Attorney's response. I will say that Driscoll just literally pulled that thing out and let her know I'm the big dog in this court. She's literally saying, and the Lopez case, they actually won against the U.S. government. Uh, the Shapiro, Diddy's lawyer, is saying, "How you gonna argue with me? Me? I'm King Kong. This is brick by brick. You're arguing cases that I was the lawyer that won. Trust me, babes. I know what the legal reasoning is, and I know what the law is. Now, I'm sure Emily Johnson just rolled her eyes just because you know what the legal reasoning is and you argued that case and you won that case doesn't mean that these facts apply to this case. However, I have said before, they do have a valid legal argument. I don't know how strong it is. That's for the legal arguments and the judge to decide. But they do have a valid legal argument when it comes to the definition of prostituting. Okay. Now, again, the U.S. attorney is trying to get them out on technicalities, just like Diddy's team is trying to get out on technicalities. But anyway, the judge said, okay. Ms. Shapiro, let's put the financial motive to the side. Why wouldn't Mr. Combs be liable under a willfully causing theory? Miss Ventura or Jane furnished the payment for the escorts, but Mr. Combs still had the relative intent, correct? Yo, listen. Um, listen. At the end of the day, he makes a good point. So Diddy's team is trying to argue that one, they did a flex and they said, I built this ish. Shapiro said, I argued Lopez. You can't tell me what Lopez meant. I fought the government and I won, right? I'm sure the government was like, can we move on? Like, baby, this ain't Lopez. His name is Combs, okay? But the judge Aaron is pushing back on Diddy's defense team and saying, put the financial motive aside, because I talked about this in the video. They're trying to act like if you the only way something can be prostitution is if they hand you cold hard cash. However, the definition is anything of value. That could be a job, that could be a promotion. To all the male YouTubers and fake reporters, that could be getting your little pitiful rent paid via Diddy, right? Anything that you perceive as value in exchange. If Diddy perceives the act of diddling with himself as more valuable than actually being in it to win it, that also is an exchange. He master beautied, that is sexual in nature, and he orchestrated. They're trying to say, well, he didn't get cash from it. He didn't make money from it. And it's like, okay, let's put that aside because he was the payer. He was the one paying, which goes into him being liable. He's asking a specific pointed question. Why wouldn't Diddy be liable under the willfully causing theory? Meaning you had the necessary mens rea. Your mens rea is your necessary mental state to know what's going on. Why couldn't you willfully caused it? He said both Cassie and Jane furnish the payment for escorts. However, one, they were reimbursed by Diddy, but two, Diddy still had the relevant intent because on more than one occasions, there were lots of text messages that show Diddy flew the escorts out, Diddy wanted the escorts, Diddy had the arrangements, Diddy had his team go in and decorate hotel rooms, go in and put the baby oil in hotel rooms. If you didn't know what was going to happen, then why was there baby oil in the hotel rooms? Again, it's getting back into, and this is where U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson, oh, I wish Maureen Comey was there. But this is where U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson really has to shine because you need to go, right? Oh, thank you. Libra poet, what's up, Libra? Said so off topic and no disrespect considering the conversation, but girl, you are glowing. Oh my God, what have you done? Spill the tea. You look stunning. So, y'all want to hear this? I have been on a fitness journey. I was tired of you mofos asking when the baby was due and how many months I was. Bastards. Anyway, right? I was tired of y'all literally being like, nah, Tisa pregnant. Y'all was literally trying to Cardi B me when I'm like, no, I'm not pregnant. I've just been eating, right? And working a lot. So what is it? I've literally just started on a fitness journey. I've been working out, drinking my water, and I unplugged and I've been on vacation, um and just living life. But thank you so much for noticing, Libra Poet. I appreciate that. Okay, so where are we? Hold on. Where are we? Let's see. Are we okay? So that's where thank you so much. So, but anyway, getting back to the whole thing, right? I love Libras. Y'all will stop the world to ask stuff about beauty and baby. We love to see it. We love to see it. The world is, I think every Libra that's killing it right now on social media as far as lifestyle and influence, I think like 80% of them are Libras. So anyway, um they're saying that not only did he do it, but he was the one that had the relative intent. He knew what he was doing. They did it for his pleasure. He agreed they did it for his pleasure. And what did Mark Agnifilo do? It's swinging, even though the National Swingers of America was like, don't put that mess on us. We did not, we don't do that. But like swingers, we're into consent, right? Um, so Shapiro hits back. She says, no, many states finds that prostitute is only when A pays B for smex with A. Here, the government's trying to get around it. But the cases where people watch others having smacks, it's not prostitution. And the actus reus in the Mann Act is transportation. Now, again, Shapiro is getting to the one part that does make me nervous. I feel like at the beginning of the trial, because the government was so sure they were going to get him on RICO before they found out too many people, no, right? Before they found out that the jury just wasn't with it, okay? The government was trying to the government should have said they were prostitutes. They shouldn't allow them to call themselves entertainers, and they shouldn't have been allowed to call themselves escorts. I think they did that for the witnesses, but Diddy's team was using that to be like, well, escorts don't guarantee. We didn't really do it. So they're trying to make that thing. Okay. So this is whole argument. Shapiro goes on. Commercial voyeurism is not prostituting. A number of states says there's a Paulino case in New York and a Georgia case, and the government had alleged that a private residence had been used for prostituting, but the court said no, it was voyeurism. Now and again, I'm getting a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I need Emily or some U.S. attorney to literally take the spirit of Maureen Comey and actually jump in and shut this down. All right. Um, where are we? Oh, Shapiro continued. That statute originally had a section about debauchery, which was excised later. The Supreme Court reversed a Seventh Circuit holding that had affirmed a conviction where the defendants had no commercial motive. Okay. Shapiro continues. Traveling interstate for a woman being a mistress or a concubine, yo, she literally called. Well, they can't be mistresses because they're not married. Did she just call Jane and Cassie concubines? The judge said, Shapiro, the Cleveland case said polygamy met the immoral purposes test. Shapiro claps back. Your Honor, respectfully, I disagree. There was a late 19th century case. There was a late 19th century case about immigration. So I'm waiting for the U.S. attorney to actually like jump in, but Judge Aaron jumped in and said, no, 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 no. Polygamy met the immoral purposes test. Okay. All right. They're still going at it. Shapiro has just respectfully disagreed. Now, again, where is the U.S. attorney? We're waiting for them to pop in. This is directly live from Inner City Press. I'm just doing my sorry, get comfortable. I'm just doing my best to actually make sure that what's up? I am Hollywood. Hey, Love Buzz 1111. Positive vibes. How are you? Listen, so the the defense is basically arguing that again, because Diddy didn't get money from it, then it can't be prostituting. It's It's a benign, but also an absurd, but also legally savvy argument. As we've seen in the Diddy trial, things that make sense in real life, if you can get around the legal happenings and doing, it could be different, okay? And you could have the outcome that Diddy got, where he got off on the RICO. But here's the thing. Judge Aaron is looking that he doesn't want to go out on a ledge, maybe, and start a new precedent. But if he rules for Diddy's side, he is starting a very, very, very new precedence. Okay. And what is that precedence? The precedence is that Diddy basically that if you are a sex trafficker, right? And well, let's just say what happened. If you are a sex trafficker and you somehow make money on the dark web making smut films about donkeys, lions, chickens, geeses, and like all the inhabitants of the Magic School Bus, and you argue, well, I ain't get any money for it. Does that change the definition of what it is that you actually did? Now, I would argue, and I hope the U.S. Attorney's Office, we're waiting for them to respond, is also going to argue, we all know in today's day and age, you can have benefit outside of making money from it. Sex trafficking doesn't have to be that you're just like getting these people, or even the under the Mann Act, even the prostitute just to make money off of it. That would imply that you are a PIMP, which I think an argument can be made. But hear me out. Because on the World Wide Web, especially the dark web, when it comes to PDF files and weirdos and stuff like that, people that are into things that can wind you up in jail, okay? They have chat groups. And they have a whole society, and they have chat groups. And those chat groups, the only way you can get in is by trading because they're so paranoid about being caught. They're so paranoid about they're so paranoid about getting caught. They're so paranoid about the feds infiltrating their chat that they make you show illegal material, kind of like you're showing ID to get into a club. There, you are running a ring, you are smex trafficking, or you are engaging in prostituti and moving prostitutes over state lines. You're doing all of that. The only thing is, what is it of value? Value can be more than money. But again, Diddy's team is trying to argue that value is only money, which oddly enough, that seems to be like what a lot of people in, sorry, that seems to be what a lot of people in Diddy's life honestly argue. They seem to only value money and they seem to only value things to get money, right? Somebody's a good person, they can take you to the Met Gala. You don't even realize that you're the charity. That's a good deed he did, taking you to the Met Gala. Somebody's a good person, they can buy you Chanel, take you shopping for Gucci. How lowly do you have to think about yourself and be morally bankrupt? This is not even to say about the men that did this um like supported him to get a few dollars instead of doing an honest day's labor and getting a job at IKEA, building furniture. The whole point is, it's like we all know from the materialistic society and the people that surround Diddy, yeah, there's lots of things value outside of money because that's what they're going for. Um, Now, she is arguing a number of states say that voyeurism is not prostituting. However, I want to hear Emily Johnson come back with what the New York state says about it because that will be the most okay. That will be the most thing. So anyway, hold on. Okay, hold on. Now, there are people that have point out that the case they argue, United v. D. Dennis, undercuts the government's whole argument with waiver. Again, it pains me to say, but Driscoll and Shapiro, when it comes to technical arguments, are some of the best. And again, you are trying to get off on a technicality, not on truth, not on righteousness or on justice. So anyway, let's see. So getting back, have they tweeted? Okay, so they're still waiting for the response. Inner City Tourist, what are you doing? He must have stopped to get a sip of his Sprite because what is going on? Okay, so here's the thing. So anyway, picking up what Shapiro says, just to refresh your memory, she said, this is being live tweeted directly from court by the Inner City Press. I am not in court today, but I will be at the sentencing. So you guys can get ready for some pure comedy, writing like watching me fight all the New York City elements like I am the last airbender. You guys can get a nice laugh about that. And see me outside fighting the New York City elements to bring y'all the real tea. Anyway, she said traveling interstate, Shapiro said, Your Honor, traveling interstate for a woman being a mistress or a concubine, the judge interrupts. Counselor, the Cleveland case said polygamy met the moral and purposes test. Shapiro, I respectfully disagree, Your Honor. There was a late 19th century case about immigration. Shapiro then goes to say, Your Honor, all the federal constitutional law that developed around privacy of sexual relations, the judge interrupts. Miss Foster, USA Foster comes up to the plate. Your Honor, this case is different. That where a person in a booth watches people have smex, Combs is directly challenging the term prostitute. Diddy is a freedom fighter for all the freaks, all the losers, all the bums, all the aged out pygmies that mad that even in their prime they just didn't meet the requirements, right? All the people whose hair smells like mildew. um Diddy is the advocate for them, and he is now trying to be a freedom fighter and change what the definition of prostitute is. Now again, I'm not going to, the legal definition of prostitute is Prostitutee involves engaging, agreeing, or offering to engage in sexual conduct with another person in return for a fee. Now, what do we have here? Prostitution involves agreeing, engaging. He did agree, he did engage, or offering, right, to engage in sexual conduct with another person in return for a fee. Now, we could argue that Diddy's team is going to argue, and they're in court right now. Listen, Diddy paid prostitutes to have sex with his girlfriends. That is the legal definition, right? Again, people keep saying it's smex. No, it's sexual conduct. Again, if you're swingers and you pay to watch somebody plow your significant other, you engaged in sexual conduct, especially when you stood in the corner, when you masturbated to everything and where you directed everything. You can't say you were a director when you were the active participant. Much more, none of these things, most of these occurrences weren't actually filmed, at least with girlfriends, okay? Listen, listen, I will say one thing, in return for a fee. The defense is arguing that they just invited them over. They never knew how much they were going to get paid. However, Diddy did reach out to Cowboys and Angels and asked how much it was and said he didn't want to pay anybody. Second of all, I will just say this. Was there ever a time that anybody came over when they didn't get paid? Every time you came over, Smex was involved. Was there ever a time that a prostitute met Diddy, Cassie, Jane, whoever, and they didn't receive some form of payment? Because to me, that's the bigger argument. Let's not talk about what it isn't. Let's talk about what it is. Can you name one time that these people came over and didn't leave with payment? Now, here's the thing. They will bring up the time that one of the prostitutes said that they couldn't perform, but they still tried. Again, we're not talking about the actual act of smex. We are talking about, say it with me, class, sexual conduct. Just the fact that you were trying to, even though you couldn't, and you were trying to, that doesn't take away from the fact that that was sexual contact. Because even if you couldn't finish or couldn't perform, had you been doing that without somebody's consent, that would actually be grape. Why? Because it is sexual conduct. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Blah, blah. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, they're arguing that they're supposed to have privacy around sexual relations. Yeah, but not if you are paying people. Not if you're paying people. USA Foster then says, Your Honor, this case is different that where a person in a booth watches people have sex. Diddy is challenging the whole term of prostitute. She goes on. This is U.S. Attorney Foster speaking. Your Honor, here, the women helped arrange the transportation of escorts. So for the defendant, it's aiding and abetting. The judge interrupts her. Okay, counselor, but you're saying they had the intent, they paid the money, they had the smecks. That is willfully caused? Shapiro realizes this kind of blows up her argument. So now she's interjecting. Your Honor, if I may respond, the judge looks at Diddy's defense attorney and says, Miss Shapiro, I'll give you time at closing. Miss Slavic, now he wants to talk to another U.S. attorney. Miss Slavic, the U.S. attorney Slavic. Your Honor, the record does not show that every time an escort traveled and had SMEX, that the SMEX act was filmed. They only say routinely filmed. He frequently filmed free calls or hotel nights. But Your Honor, not all the time. So why is this important? Because they are literally trying to say that Diddy was basically filming amateur bong chicka bong bong. And here's the thing. He only has 2 counts for the Mann Act. So they don't have to show every single time it was filmed. They can even, I don't think they'll give the ground, but they can be like, okay, fine. Maybe those 6 times you filmed it and you can say that was amateur P. But this time you didn't film it and you helped arrange travel and you did this and that. So that is prostituting. And that time you didn't film it and you helped arrange travel and your employee set up. So that's prostituting. So that's what they're saying. But right now they don't want to give up too much ground. Again, the Diddy docket has said that prostituting involves engaging and they're not saying this is the legal definition. That prostituting involves engaging, agreeing, or offering to engage in sexual conduct with another person in return for free. Again, I do want to know, was there ever a time that you engaged in smex with a person and they did not receive payment and that you were not the person that paid them? Because we all know that Diddy was brown paper bagging. So USA Slavic, just to remind you, she's continued her argument, but let me just take it from the top. Your Honor, the record does not show that every time an escort traveled and had Smex with the Smex Act was filmed. They only say routinely filmed. He frequently filmed free calls or hotel nights, but not all the time. USA Slavic continues. Your Honor, the explicit videos chart show that there was travel for Smex, but sometimes there were no videos recovered of those encounters. We can pull up the exhibits. Judge actually cuts her off. Counselor, hold up. You argue that even if they were filmed, it wouldn't matter? USA Slavic. Right, 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 right. You got it. You got it. She literally was like, right. USA Slavic continues. Your Honor, the Mann Act criminalizes travel for prostituting, not filming smex. The test for symbolic speech is whether there is an intent to convey a meaning. The transportation conveys no message, so there is no symbolic speech here. She goes on to say, because she's cooking down, Your Honor, in O'Brien, the protected symbolic speech was the burning of draft cards. If you guys don't know, O'Brien case was when they literally tried to throw this person in jail because they were burning their draft cards and they were against the Vietnam War. And the government was like, that's government property. You're going to jail for destroying government property. And O'Brien was like, no, this is freedom of speech. I am making an unspoken statement by burning this draft card. Now, the unspoken statement is F you, but that is my freedom of speech, not destruction of government property. Anyway, um, USA Slavic said, and O'Brien, the protected symbolic speech was the burning of draft cards. Here, Your Honor, transportation is not symbolic speech. So then the judge interjects, and this is what worries me a little bit. Judge Aaron says, so if a movie producer is making popolaphic films, are you saying the First Amendment is not implicated? USA Slavic, Your Honor, that's a closer call. Okay. That's a closer call. USA Slavic wants to clarify. She says, Your Honor, and the other cases cited, the producers said when they were transported, hey, we'll be filming a movie. Here, he only intended the individuals to engage in prostituting. The defendant here was not an amateur corn producer. And that is true. When you are an amateur corn producer, and if I was the U.S. Attorney's Office, I would go, if this argument does win, I hope it doesn't, but if it does, right? I would go after Diddy for tax evasion. Because if you were an amateur corn producer and you were paying people for work, where are the tax receipts? Where's the receipts? Where's the 1099s? Where's the W-2s? Where are the 1099s that you should have issued to these amateur corn actors, which are the hit with the ugly stick prostitutes? Where are they? Like, I want to know, where are they? Um, Again, if you are saying that this was, like Salvis has said, you never said, hey, we're filming. You never had like special lighting bought besides like demonic candles in a circle. But do you see what I'm saying? You cannot just say, I cannot just say, hey, I'm an employee that works for Donald Trump because things need to be proven. You'd be like, if you're an employee, where's your employee benefits? Do you have an employee ID? Do you have a W-2? Do they pay you in a paycheck? Well, no. I work freelance. I'm a contract employee. All right, where's your 1099? Because all contract employees must be paid via 1099s. Where's the 1099? Did you report it to the government? Because even if they didn't report it to the government, you were supposed to report it to the government. Did you take this as a tax writer? I don't know. I would kind of want to get them for tax evasion, same way they got Al Capone, but that's just me. Anyway, um, listen. So anyway, she's using the common sense of tap, right? The fact that the defense is arguing that Diddy is acting as an amateur film producer is laughable, okay? The fact that he will watch these films later and Jane bought him a TV to watch these films, some people ask, does that support the argument? Um, no, it doesn't support or hurt. It just shows that he watched it. I would make the argument that his whole goal was to derive sexual pleasure, and that's what he was actually paying for. Um, anyway, let's get back into this because there's more arguments to be made. Blah 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 blah. Listen. Oh, so USA Slavic goes on to say, Your Honor, in other cases cited, the producers, this is when you could prove that it was amateur P. The producer would say when they transported, hey, we're going to be filming a movie. Your Honor, here he only intended the individuals to engage in prostitution. The defendant here was not an amateur producer. The judge interjects, counselors, if we get to O'Brien, what and O'Brien is symbolic freedom of speech or expression. The First Amendment is often what porn, corn, lorn producers use in order to um justify like whatever's going on, right? In prostituting, right? Um, he said, so if we get to O'Brien, what is the important government interest? USA Slavic jumps in. Your Honor, there's a substantial governmental interest in regulating prostitution. In 1986, the court declined to apply O'Brien because the act had nothing to do with speech. The act had nothing to do with speech. What type of statement? Also, the fact that this was amateur and the fact that even when O'Brien burned his draft card, he did it publicly. That's how the government got involved. If he just did it in his house, nobody would know. I think the government is making a good argument. What freedom of speech are you trying to protect when you only use this for your own purposes and to blackmail the women, according to women, blackmail the women with it? Um, they said, da 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 da. Okay. USA Slavic goes on to say, Your Honor, Justin Souter in dissent said he would have applied O'Brien, but even he agreed that regulating prostitution is an important governmental interest on laws against uh, nude dancing. The court found secondary impacts important. Now, listen. Also, oh, somebody made a good point. Real Cleo actually made a good point and said you need licenses to film like corn. You need licenses. But this is important too. See, what they're trying to argue, and I think this is something very key to the prosecution getting their way. The defense is trying to argue, who cares? It's just a little prostituting. And all of the fake old ass all of the let me stay focused. But listen, all of the men or people grown enough to be people's men, to be men, should be men, that are on their knees begging for rent money so they don't got to sleep in the car anymore from Diddy and trying to push this notion they can just mistreat people. Everybody is trying to act like, oh my God, it's just a little prostitute, it's just a little rug because they live debaucherous lives, right? But the government is saying, stop. You have to look at the weighing of governmental interests. Your rights can never be bigger than the program. If your rights some way put society in harm, then you're never bigger than the program. For instance, you can have free speech, but if I yell fire, right? If I yell fire in a movie theater and people get trampled, hurt, maimed, I cannot say, oh, it's my freedom of speech because you're never bigger than the program. The program is society being protected. The program is keeping society in a way that we can like raise our children. Now, I know we can argue whatever's going on. I know, but this is we're arguing just on theory, right? So even though I do have freedom of speech to say what I want, I'm never bigger than the program. And if I want to yell fire in a crowded room, that's not protected under free speech because I have literally caused innocence or people to be hurt, maimed, or even worse. Okay. You're never bigger than the program. The government is arguing, listen, Diddy's arguments sound good. But the one thing that you're overlooking is the government, society. We have a vested interest in regulating prostitution. We have a vested interest in tampering down prostitution. That is why in most states, prostitution is illegal. That is why in most states, rug use is illegal. That is why in most states, selling, distributing, and all this stuff in other states is actually illegal. You're never bigger than the program. The program is to create a society that kids can actually walk around in. The USA Attorney's Office made a good point where she was like, for instance, in a case that uses O'Brien to decide. So you're trying to say that it's okay to dance nude in public? If that's freedom of expression, can I just go to Applebee's and be like, yay, right? And can I go to Applebee's and be like, can I go to Applebee's and just start crip walking while everything's swinging here and there and there and that and be like, no, this is my freedom of expression? Can I go to Applebee's in a thong and paint myself an American flag and be like crip walking on the thing? Can I? No, because that's not covered under freedom of speech because you have to weigh in the government is the people, okay? And you have to weigh that in. Let's keep going in this in. Let's go keep going into that. So they're trying to say that, yeah, you're never bigger than the program. USA Slavic goes on to say, there are reasons to regulate prostitution. See erotic service provider 880 federal third district. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, it's a ninth district, but this was a 2018 ruling. The more current the rulings, the better off they are. It was about a California prostitute law. It's to prevent violence against women and for health. All 50 states regulate prostitution to different degrees. So the fact that they're trying to rewrite what it means, the government saying, I don't think this is an argument for today. USA Slavic then goes on to say, the federal interest kicks in for transportation interstate or internationally. The Barnes case found that requiring pasties for dancing was okay. The judge interrupts, calls Diddy's lawyers. Miss Shapiro, on the First Amendment, Shapiro, she's rubbing her hands together. Shout out to Ari, rubbing her hands together like Birdman. She's like, it's my time to shine because this is where she shines on technicalities. Ugh, Diddy's lawyers are too good. Shapiro on the First Amendment said, it was filmed the majority of the time, Your Honor. How do we know that it was filmed majority of the time? Because Diddy was saying there were no free call tapes, so how was it filmed the majority of the time? These are not all the instances of the free calls. It's just what could be proven. Anyway, listen. Anyway, she's saying it was filmed the majority of the time. Shapiro goes on to say, Your Honor, just because the footage wasn't found doesn't matter. The U.S. has ignored our second district First Amendment argument that he was a consumer of amateur corn. As to being a producer, amateur corn is protected by the First Amendment. Okay, but why can't all things be true? Why can't you be engaging in prostitution for the hopes of making amateur, and you also at times filmed it because you wanted a keepsake, a takeaway, and that keepsake and takeaway is amateur corn, and you want so you engage in prostitution and then you use that to make amateur corn. Like, why? I'm confused. And I wish a legal expert will let me but tell me, but why can't both things be true at once? You know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm saying. Hold on, let's get back into this live stream because it is popping off. Why couldn't they? Like, why can't both things be true? Okay, you did it and you made amateur corn. All right, cool, 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 cool. So anyway, Shapiro goes on to say, Your Honor, um, at trial they emphasized that it was choreographed, that there was a role playing in wigs. It was filmed, so covered by the First Amendment. But Mr. Combs also had a right as a consumer of amateur P. See Free Speech Coalition via Paxson. Again, these U.S. attorneys better kick into action because what? This is nonsensical. And this is what I mean about why Shapiro's so good at what she does. And Driscoll, his whole team is good at the individual things they do, right? Westmoreland, great cross-examine. Xavier, great cross-examine. You have Mark Agnifilio, older white men and pick-me's love him, right? You have Brian Still. Well, we already know Brian Still, like truly humble under God. We already know about Brian Still and the web of BS he weaves, right? But they're all very good at what they do. But with Shapiro, it's kind of like I want so and I wish Comey was there to call out, like, can we see the forest for the trees? Like, what are you talking about? The fact that something's choreographed, the fact that there was role playing and wigs, that doesn't mean it's amateur corn. It means that's what you're paying the prostitute to do. You see what I'm saying? That's what you're paying her to do. That does not mean at all in any way, shape, or form that that's what that was. Let's see. Did she get back into this? Hold on. Again, I do want to know one thing. Like who Valerie on Twitter said, was drugging and violence part of the movies? Was it? Like, was that Anne scene? Like Cassie was fleeing for her life down the hallway and getting dragged back in? Was it? When Jane was getting beat up and mollywopped while Diddy was standing in front of her in the shower with his clothes on like a true psycho? Was it? Again, was rugging and violence part of this amateur corn? And if he was, I would really get him on tax evasion. Did you actually report any of this filmmaking to the government? Did you get a license? Did you report your earnings? Did you report the pay? Did you claim any losses? What about the rugging and violence? We saw Cassie flee down the hall in the middle of a freak off. I really, Valerie, this is a very, very good question, Valerie. Points to you for asking. Very, very good question. Okay, so get this. So Shapiro goes on to say, Your Honor, Jane even bought a TV so they could watch the videos together. The judge. Okay, so how does that apply to the transportation count? Shapiro. If, Your Honor, if the intent included filming and watching later, the judge said, so not prostitution if it's recorded and watched later? Because this is another thing. You're trying to say, Shapiro's trying to say that they created this whole dreamscape for the whole sake of him filming it and watching later. But this goes into intent because you're now trying to say that when you invited these people over, you had the intent to film them to watch it later. See, they're trying to say, did he just, they just came and they didn't know they were going to be paid and we'll see. But the judge is like, so if he decided to film it, which was the argument I was just making, why can't it be both things at once? So it's not prostitution, the judge said, if it's recorded and watched later? Because why can't both things be true? It was prostituting and you decided to get the bang for your buck and watch it later. Second of all, if this was amateur porn, right? Did he get waivers or consent from these people to actually film them? Did he get consent? And forget about the prostitutes, did you get consent from Jane? Did you get a consent from Cassie? Did you get consent from these people to actually film them? Since that's what we're going to, because you would need consent from all parties involved, right? Let's also not forget that you tried to blackmail them with it. The jury didn't care, but baby, call me the North. I remember I cared very much about that. Let's see what else. There's a few other things that's going on. let's see what else. King K said, King K is an idiot. Said if it's prostituting, then both Diddy, Cassie Jane, and all the male escorts should be facing this trial. They all consented. Dummy, the government gave them immunity. They were all facing some of these charges, and the government gave them immunity. Like, keep up. Um, Listen, the real Cleo said Diddy's team working hard to get Diddy out. Guess they want to play baby oil party too. I guess so. But again, are people dumb? If that's the case, they should all be. Yes. Have you ever seen a mob boss? Have you ever seen limited government immunity? The government gave a lot of these people immunity in exchange for their prostitution. I mean, sorry, in exchange for their actual, you guys, this is live tweeting. We are waiting for the next round of live tweets. Keep in mind, it's coming in 1 second, but keep in mind also that uh listen, keep in mind also that I will be there on the day of sentencing because we have to see what goes on. We have to see if good versus evil. I do want to say, um, um, uh, oh, get this. Lawyered Up, who's very good on Twitter, said the judge's question kind of damages the defense's First Amendment argument. Filming an act of prostitute does not absolve the defendant of criminal liability for prostitute. Thank you. That's why I kept asking. Could not both things be the same? I do want to say this, right? Um, uh, to all of the dirty, dusty, musty crew. Um, about the whole thing. While we're waiting for the next tweet to come in, let's laugh a little, shall we? Remember how everybody was saying that Tisa was lying and I find it funny that everybody that was saying Tisa was lying was not actually in the courtroom. Half of them weren't even in the overflow room. Half of them don't even understand anything except for Mr. Diddy, may I get some money and get on your knees. That's all they understand, right? I'm talking to these male wannabe journalists, podcasters, like whatever, right? But I do want to say this. It's funny how as more evidence comes out and as the transcripts comes out, nobody's been able to specifically point to anything. And when you look at the pre-sentencing report, right? When you look at the pre-sentencing report where that is completely unbiased. It's the Department of Corrections. They literally take stuff and they add a point here, a point there, a point there. Diddy, for all the information, right? And again, I get the fact that they like to have this narrative because they like to obscure too. They were hoping on people's ignorance. They were hoping on people operating off of feelings and not facts. Okay. But the pre sentence report came out with a score of 27. And that is only on facts, not feelings, based off of all the available evidence, both for and against Diddy. 27 recommends between 5 years and 7 years and 3 months as a term. And the prosecution said they're on the way up and they're going to recommend significantly more. So, all these people that were beating the drums, talking about, oh, this and that, and I got the real thing, when most of y'all just, I think a lot of people just didn't know how many people wanted to be on the Diddy payroll and was begging for pennies because, like, you just didn't see how pathetic they were. You didn't see how, like, unwashed and unloved and how unpathetic they were, and how truly just morally decrepit, and how they really saw a win for Diddy as a win for them because you found out that a lot of them had, like, Diddy-like issues in their own life. They wanted the whole world said, "You're nothing but a no good this, that, and the third. You're not this, you're not that." And they wanted to be like, yeah, I'm someone. I may be a scumbag, but I'm a scumbag by the billionaire, not even realizing it was groupie behavior. But I do want to say that in all that, when you look at the actual transcripts, right? When you look at the actual transcripts, I believe the record reflects what I was saying. I believe the jury got it wrong. Now, this is America, and we have to let it go with the jury. But I think the jury got it wrong. I think that things slipped through the prosecution. I think there were witnesses that should have been called that weren't. It doesn't matter. But the fact that they are now trying to act like these man charges are not that serious, it's a little bit odd. It's a little bit odd. Let's get back into the uh let's get back into this live chat because again, it's a lot of questions that need to be answered, you know? And unfortunately, let's see. So get this. So here's the thing. Um, Lawyered Up on Twitter was right. This kind of backed up Diddy's team. Where we last left our beleaguered demon lawyer. She's trying to get Diddy out on bail because the hell she cares, right? She's not going to go to school with her kids aren't going to go to school with any of the people that Diddy's going to prey on. And the people that are begging on their knees to be on the Diddy payroll, your kid's probably not going either because I don't know. If you're their parents, we see what probably happened with that. So I don't know. They said that listen, they said so Shapiro said it's a free speech. Uh she said, "So not if the prostitute was watched. Does that make a difference to watch later?" She said, "So it's not prostitution if it's recorded and watched later." Shapiro, this threw her for a loop. She says, Judge, you wouldn't have to find this. This is a unique case. So if this is a unique case, why are you trying to connect it to these other cases? Or as soon as we get something that shows that you really damaged your argument, oh, but this is so unique. Don't worry about that. The judge, she's talking to U.S. Attorney Slavic now. Ms. Slavic pointed out the government's other interests, including transportation across state lines. What do you say about that, Shapiro? Your Honor, you have to look at the conduct of this defendant. The judge says, okay, but the U.S. Attorney, they say the drug use is also an issue. Shapiro. Your Honor, the only drug charge here was in the RICO charge, of which Mr. Combs was acquitted. DOJ policy doesn't even say what Ms. Slavic says. It says the statute should only be used on prostitution as a business or the trafficking of minors. Now, if you are, I would even go so far, if you are an amateur corn producer, is that not a business? It doesn't matter whether you only have an audience of one. Are you not? Is that not a business being an amateur corn producer? Is that not a business? Again, if I'm baking cakes, right? If I'm baking cakes, is that not is that not a business even if I only sell to my mama and my cousin? Like, is that not? Again, and also, they didn't talk they said the drug use. They weren't even talking about distribution this time, which, by the way, this GMF and jury, the fact that they didn't get at least distribution, but even with the drug use, notice how they keep trying to move the needle. We're not talking about distribution or selling anymore. We're talking about rug use. I know, baby, there was a lot of rug use. All right. But again, there is an argument to be made. There is an argument to make. I talked to a bunch of legal people. They said what is going to happen is that the judge is probably not going to rule off the bench today. What he's going to do, sorry, guys, what he's going to do is take all this in. Tuesday's going to be the ruling, which I'll be there. And then he's going to make his ruling on the acquittal. And I'll probably be there too to see what actually happens because he can be sentenced. And then the acquittal can still happen. And also, if the acquittal does happen, the prosecution can actually appeal. Okay, so hold on, guys. Hold on. Where are we at? 1 second. Okay, they're saying that the only drug charge here was a RICO charge, but he admitted to lots and lots and lots in court. He admitted to lots of drug use, and also the people he was with said that he liked them high, and he liked this thing, and they said that his servants, which is basically what they were, they called them employees, but they acted like servants from like downtown Abbey. I am the king's men. That his servants often bought him rugs. Okay. So in any case, hold on. There's a few more tweets coming in. Okay. So Shapiro again said, Your Honor, the only drug charge here was in the RICO charges, of which Mr. Cohn was acquitted. DOJ policy doesn't even say what Ms. Slavic says. It says the statute should only be used on prostitution as a business or trafficking of minors. The judge says, Those were my questions, Ms. Shapiro. Shapiro. Your Honor, I believe Ms. Foster said that the two women testified they were paying for prostituting. We must have been in a different trial. I don't remember either woman saying they were involved in prostituting. Oh my God. Listen, again, you don't recall either woman saying they were involved in prostituting. They called people from an agency. There has to be some law that says that if I put a bang bang in your back and be like, stick them out, give me all you got, and I take your stuff, and then I say, you have been blessed with the blood of Christ, and then I pistol whip you, right? Are we really going to go in court and argue that I didn't rob you all because you never said you were robbed? You said that I approached you on a dark corner, stuck a bang bang into your back, demanded I give you everything. I demanded that you give me everything that you own. And then I said, You are blessed with the blood of Christ, and I pistol whip you. And then you go and say that you were robbed. And I say, You couldn't possibly been robbed because you said that I blessed you with the blood of Jesus Christ. This is the argument that Diddy's team is making. We're going to have to really, really, really speed this up. Listen, okay. We're going to have to speed this up. Like, government, where are you? Get in here. Again, Shapiro is walking around the questions, and they're basically trying to say that just because I never called it a thing doesn't mean it is. If you violently take my body without my consent, I could call it doing the roo-rah. I could call it the Illuminati shuffle. I could call it like making death instead of making love. But if the actions suffice to the statute, then no matter what you call it, it links up with the statute. Is the government going to actually bring this point out? We're nearing to the end of the acquittal hearing. Again, the judge is not expected to make a ruling off the bench. The government is expected to go to sentencing and then make a ruling on this acquittal and or new trial motion. Under Rule 29, the government has argued the Rule 29 has hold on, that Rule 29 has expired. It's outside of statute of limitations. They're trying to say we didn't even need to go through all that. It's not outside of statute of limitations because the case is ongoing. Uh, Listen, that is something that for the new trial, I'm interested to see what the judge rules on. Listen, the Rule 29 is the motion for an acquittal. The government said that you missed the deadline anyway, so we shouldn't even give you an acquit. This shouldn't even be argued. The judge is going to take that into, but in the meantime, since everybody's there, he is going to have everybody make the arguments. The judge again said those were my questions, Miss Shapiro. Are you going to answer them? Miss Shapiro seems to be dancing around the question of, are you saying that because it was filmed, it couldn't have quite possibly been prostituti because he filmed it? Are you saying that any act that is filmed, so if I filmed a robbery, couldn't actually be a robbery, especially if I grape you after the robbery, because I'm making amateur corn. Couldn't possibly be this because I'm making amateur this. I'm making amateur that. It couldn't possibly be. In any case, hold on really quick, y'all. Let's see. What's the next one on the docket? Let's see what the next one on the docket actually is. 1 second. 1 second. I'm just making notes. of the thing. All right. So this is still going on. They are going to be closing arguments. They're saying these are my questions. The judge poses a question to Diddy's team. He said, "Let me ask you this. A businessman takes one of his clients to a brothel and pays a prostitute to have sex with his client. That's not prostitute?" Shapiro, Diddy's lawyer, Your Honor, is he a voyeur as well? Shapiro continues, "The Mann Act has racist origins." Oh my God. Shapiro pulled out the race card, but whatever. "The Mann Act has racist origins. Even 100 years ago, the statute was being criticized by many Supreme Court justices. Many juries refused to enforce it. The statute was embarrassing to the US. I submit respectfully." Yo, tell me that the judge kind of just poked a big hole in your argument without telling me. He literally said, "So that's not prostituting?" The man acts racist. And here's the thing, it did have racist roots, but let's be real, every law on the books in America pretty much had racist roots, especially as a Black woman, passed down through the generations. Most laws in America were made to oppress minorities. And then it was justice for all in theory. So to say that something in America has racist roots, every single court case in America almost has racist roots. Um, Shapiro continues, "Mr. Combs should be acquitted of the Mann Act counts. Thank you." The U.S. attorney says, "Your Honor, the purpose of the Mann Act has no impact on First Amendment activities. The arguments about DOJ policy, those have been argued before. There was a motion to dismiss on that in this case, Your Honor, and you actually denied this case. So the fact that they are now trying to bring up that same argument that was denied, what are we doing?" That's literally, they're like, "What are we doing? What are we doing?" The U.S. attorney goes on to say, "Your Honor, they claim there should be no concern about secondary effects because it was behind closed doors. But, Your Honor, that's the point. Miss Ventura was being punched and kicked. The defendant has the burden to show that the evidence was not sufficient. He, they, them, her, him, bodies, they cannot do that." The U.S. attorney goes on, "Your Honor, Cassie and Jane both testified that although they didn't want to be having sex with others, but they had to for days on end. Your Honor, he planned them, he choreographed them for his own pleasure. If the escort couldn't perform, he was paid less." Listen, Joe Miller said, "Do you have any idea how much Sean Diddy Combs was paid in legal fees to date?" He's paid a lot. Listen, where are we at? Da, 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 da. Mm, we're waiting for oh, U.S. attorney wasn't over. She said, "Your Honor, this went on for over 15 years. The evidence is sufficient. The defendant's motion should be denied." Judge Aaron says, "Thank you. Anything about sentencing if the motion is not granted?" Shapiro, "No, Your Honor. Listen, listen. At the end of the day, listen, listen, at the end of the day, let's see what's going on." I see on Twitter, Diddy has his bots after each tweet saying Diddy coming home. All the jury said they were lying. This isn't about anymore whether they were. No, that's not true. The jury said they don't believe that they were sex trafficked. That's different than saying that they believe that they were forced to have sex with people that they did not want to. It's two different things. The jury said they weren't smack shot. I think the jury got it wrong, but we have to respect the jury's decision. That's still saying that the jury never ruled on whether they were forced or coerced against their will for the purposes of sex trafficking. I believe that. Hold on really quickly. Hold on. Let's see what else. Let's see what else. Hold on, there's just a couple more tweets, and then we can get out of here. Again, the fact that Diddy's team, because this is Diddy and this is the way they think, that his own actions have no effect on our system, our society, on people. There has to be secondary effects. But you look at the people that actually wrote letters on Diddy's behalf, most of them talk about the things he did for them, the way he made them feel. But nobody has anything to say about how he helped the greater community at good, at good. All right. So the Shapiro doesn't have anything to say about what's going on at the sentencing. The sentencing, your girl will be covering it live. Don't worry, and I'll be out acting a fool. Y'all know what that is, right? Anyway, the judge said, "I'll decide soon." Court adjourned. Court adjourned, y'all. Court adjourned. So let me just say something, right? Because I think it needs to be said. Hold on. Let me say something because I believe that it needs to be said. All right. Um, yeah, the judge will decide soon, probably after sentencing. Diddy is not going home today. He is not going free. He is taking himself, he is taking himself right back to that jail suit in the tan jumpsuit that he loves so well. You guys, let's get into this. Let me just read a few questions before we go. You guys, it is listen, it is uh, listen, it is what it is. I don't know what Diddy thinks this is. I don't know what his lawyers think it is, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Listen, you guys, uh again, even for Diddy and this whole thing about his kids and his family, oh my God, he wrote letters. His kids need him to survive. All your kids are adult, and you're giving out free game classes in jail. Why aren't you giving out free game chances for your kids, right? Like seriously. Oh, hold on, let me read these super topic. Honeybee therapy. What's up, mama? Lauren 518. Hello, mama. Emmy Nash, Michelle, what's up? Said I miss my Tattletale family. Hey, hey, I'll be at court. Don't worry, on the third. B, what's up? Thank you so much. And Nick, love you too, Mama. Thank you so or love you too, sir or ma'am. Love you too. Love you too. Love you too. Listen, the fact that they are trying to paint a world where debauchery is just normal. Listen, I get it that I will say if you look at the average age of all the Diddy supporters, at least on YouTube, I mean, I feel like they're like dinosaurs. I feel like I, I feel like it's just a very outdated way of thinking. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's a very an outmoded way of thinking, the way that they are actually thinking, what they want, what they achieve to. I feel like they're from that era where like they could literally put something in someone's drink and haha, the girl got caught slipping. And if you were at a frat party and then that was you, if you got roofied, and they haven't realized that like the world has moved on and they're just very desperate to have that same way of thinking. But listen, at the end of the day, Diddy is not being released today. F what you heard. And I would say, son, SON, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. I would say this, and I think it's important to actually say that a lot of people that are supporting Diddy, I believe, are some of the biggest spreaders of propaganda and misinformation because Diddy's not going home. The pre sentencing report is recommending 7 years, 3 months. And that the pre-sentence report are the ones that are the middle ground. The prosecution say that they're gunning more. Judging by what the judge actually said here, and nobody knows what he's going to rule, but it does look like he just didn't fall for the whole First Amendment arguing and the argument that it couldn't be prostituti if he was filming, and the fact that since we didn't call it prostituti, that's not what it was. Again, it is what it is. Listen, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I will talk to y'all later. Also, don't forget, I'll be outside of court, uh, actually for the Diddy trial and for the fall off and aftermath. In the meantime, you guys stay safe, be blessed, and stay away from people that are low vibrational. And just know, ain't no groupie like a man that wants a penny from a richer man. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, y'all, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.